The conception of social safety states that the world is globally governable, but there is such a tendency in the view of people that there is spontaneous self-movement and tasks of a governing nature arising from this. We are speaking about the global predictor, about global governance. We say that there is nothing ungovernable. What would you say in objection to this traditional view of both science and common sense concerning governance?
In the conception of social safety, this is considered through the prism of the entire function of governance. What is the entire function of governance? This is a list of necessary actions, doings, that must be performed in order for the system to work. If there is something that is not performed, then the system dies. For example, an airplane is flying. In order for it to take off, fly normally, land, it needs two wings, tanks filled with fuel, sober pilots who know the route. There should be a tracking system, radars, and so on. This is obvious. If we shift this image onto the state, we're also flying. We have fuel, reserves of natural resources, a route has been chosen. If something is missing, the system dies. In this regard, I ask the question, are we still alive? Does our state still exist? Hence, in relation to us, these elements of the entire function of governance are performed. If they were not performed, our country would simply crumble. We would be in chaos. There is such a famous work by Ilya Prigozhin named Order Out of Chaos. This work is about the shift of certain processes that exist in reality in the physical world onto the social system. This cannot be done. Why? Because a person kind of loses his reason. It is like humanity, no need to fuss. And then a certain abstract state comes, which is called a bifurcation point in that work, and people move into a new qualitative state. That is, somehow of their own accord. But it is obvious that nothing happens of its own accord. So there should exist governance. And governance does exist, and is carried out according to the entire function of governance. In this sense, we came to an understanding of conceptual power. What is this about? I talked to Grigory Yavlinsky and asked him a question. You think that you are the highest power in our country? That is, the legislative branch invests laws, the executive executes them, and the judicial branch keeps order. So to say, we have three independent branches of power, and all our people perceive this as a norm. I asked him, on what basis do you invent your laws? On the basis of a chemical reaction in your brain. That is, if an official has a sausage sandwich in the morning before coming to the Duma, he has a meaty chemical reaction in his stomach that impacts his head, and he invents one kind of law. And if he eats a cheese sandwich, then a dairy reaction takes place in his brain, which impacts a different part of the head, and he invents another kind of law. But it's really interesting. On what basis do our deputies invent laws? After all, they invent them on the basis of their understanding of privaceness and unprivaceness, of what is right or wrong. And what forms in people this understanding? What tells them that this should be so, but not otherwise? What is privaceness and what is not? This is determined by the ideology that guides this or that official. Therefore, in our Duma, this is clearly expressed. How? Which ideology is the Communist Party headed by Gennady Zyuganov based on? It is based on Marxist ideology. Vladimir Zhirinovsky's party, supposedly, on the democratic one. The Yabloko party has another ideology. You can continue this list. But what is the point? The point is ideological power exists, but legally it is nowhere to be found. And Article 13 of our Constitution says so directly. No ideology may be established as state or obligatory one. By the way, this is correct. But the question arises, where do these ideologies come from? Do they fall from the sky? And here we come to the understanding of conceptual power on the basis of the entire function of governance. The Russian people always associate power with the fist. Therefore, using the 5 fingers of my left hand, I will show you the following. The thumb is conceptual power, based on free will reasoning. One should not be afraid of this word. Free will reasoning can be добронравие or malnравие, but it certainly exists. Conceptual power poses a question. People, how are we going to live with each other? One free will reasoning, supposing from above, God, says, people, let us live in a доброе pravis way, respect the elders, take care of the younger generation, the weak, work together. What has always been considered pravis in Russia since ancient times? People, let's live according to God. Another free will reasoning, directly the opposite, the satanic one, says, I will reign over all of you, and you will be my slaves. Like this. So, if this free will reasoning has to hide its intention, then it will not directly tell people about its plans, it will hide them. The index finger is ideological power, which packs the design of conceptual power in a beautiful wrapper. There can be as many wrappers as you want. That is, there can be as many ideologies as you want. This is called pluralism. These wrappers are now freedom, human rights, etc. Conceptual power based on privacy does not need to be packed into anything. It states everything directly. It is one for the comfortable perception by people, in those images and forms acceptable to them. Moreover, it is improved depending on the development of mankind. And then, on the remaining fingers, comes legislative, executive, and judicial powers. And we are deceived with ingenious simplicity when they tell us about 3 independent branches of power. But they do not tell us about ideological and conceptual powers. However, they are objectively present in society. As Plutarch said, you who rule are a subject. If we do not have our own conception and our own ideology, then we live according to someone else's reasoning. And this alien reasoning is realized in relation to us, according to the alien conception, the alien ideology developed from abroad. This is what we name agents of influence. All this is not as simple as it may seem. This does not mean that our politicians were summoned and told, here are dollars for you, so you go and destroy the Soviet Union. It is not like this. This is accomplished with our own hands, through the fooling of the people. After all, we began our conversation with the fact that an information war is being waged against us. And what can be a weapon in an information war? Information. That is, in a hot war, a person has injuries and suffers from bullets, shrapnels, shells. And in the information war, unfortunately, the absolute majority of our population is wounded in the head by weapons of information. Some are deceived by some religion, some by some false teachings, etc. And these herds of people are running around, and every one of them is waving his own flag. This is how we have all been divided. Divide and conquer, they say. This was the intention of the Harvard Project, to tear our society apart. The one who owns the whole, he stands above this chaos. That is, if you are inside this chaos, then it seems to you that it is chaos. It is not clear why everyone is fussing, running around. But as soon as you rise to a higher level of understanding, what seems to be chaos from a higher level of understanding looks like completely governable and purpose-oriented processes. So it is this purpose-oriented character of process that is carried out in relation to us by the alien conceptual power through the introduction of the poison of pluralism into our society.
What was veiled before, we now perceive as a crude lower stage of the entire function of governance, the component of force. The war in Yugoslavia, which has now sobered our heads to a large extent. Could you elaborate a little on this component of force in the priorities of governance?
In order to understand how one person can govern another person, and how one country can govern another, can seize the wealth of that foreign country, I would like to remind you that there exist 6 priorities of governance in the conception of social safety. What is a priority? This is a level of significance. That is, a high priority is more significant in relation to a lower one. So, now imagine these 6 stairs in your mind. The 6th stair is the simplest in relation to the other ones. And now we will go up these stairs. I will explain to you the positions of the conception of social safety and how the expansion is carried out. The 6th stair is the simplest level, when one person can govern other people. Many people say, what does it mean to govern? And can a person be governed? Yes, he can be governed. That is, a person is like a car. There is a subject of governance who has an object of governance. This subject rotates the steering wheel to the left. The car goes left. To the right, the car goes right. Presses the pedal, the car stops, and so on. The same concerns a person as well. We are also governed. The structural method of governance is when a person is given a command directly, like in the army, for example, to the right, to the left, and the soldier goes where the commander orders him to go. In production as well, the chief orders the team of workers to weld the pipeline, for example, and the team follows the order. Everyone understands this kind of governance. But there exists structureless governance. This is when a person is not given a command directly, but such an informational impact is exerted on him, where he allegedly himself makes a decision, for example, to go to the right or to the left. Astrological forecasts are a simple example. For instance, they say on TV that we do not recommend that Leos and Virgos make financial transactions tomorrow, as tomorrow is an unfavorable day for them. Both Leos and Virgos will follow this in a statistically predetermined way. With the help of such actions of mediated informational influence, it is possible to activate the purchase of the dollar, the sale of the dollar. It is possible to activate the activity of trading exchanges, and so on. This is a structureless method of governance. And it turns out that with such a structureless method of governance, it is possible to exercise governance over both individuals and millions of people and states as well. Unfortunately, many do not understand this, but it does exist. This is a hidden mechanism. Such structureless methods of governance are the financial credit system, world religions, ideologies. All of these 6 stairs are methods of structureless governance. What does it look like? Here, we are on the first stair, the 6th priority. These are the usual means of destruction. How, in this case, can a person govern another person? Supposing I have a gun, and I say right here in the studio, hands up, dig a pit. And you will do it. Because if you don't do it, if you try to escape, for instance, I can kill you. So this pressing factor allows me to achieve my objectives by force of arms. When we apply these to countries, what does it look like? We can conquer an enemy and keep him in obedience by force of arms. The country is occupied, and it does what we, the enslavers, want. Everyone understands this. This is the simplest priority. And once the governors of antiquity realized that just as one can conquer quickly, so one can suffer damage quickly. The fifth star is a weapon of genocide. This is as a Russian song goes. You don't need a knife for a drunk man. You pour him a little and do with him what you want. The oldest method is alcohol and drugs. It was enough to introduce the leader of a tribe into a state of binge, and he was ready to sell his tribe into slavery. The most impressive example in human history is the Spanish conquistadors. There were only a few tens of hundreds of Spanish conquistadors, and they destroyed an entire multi-thousand civilization of Native Americans. And it is known that this destruction was carried out on the fifth and sixth priorities. That is, they got the leaders of the tribes drunk, got others drunk, and then they were annihilated on the sixth priority. Hardly anyone knows that they extracted this fire water even from the barrels of their weapons. That is, they used guns as moonshine apparatuses. Why am I telling you this? Look at what is happening in the vastness of our homeland. Outright alcoholic genocide. Look at the circle of our friends, acquaintances. What is happening in villages, cities? Russian men are openly alcoholized. Our girls smoke. Such people kill not only themselves, but also future generations. That is, those children whom they will bear. This is a terrible genocide. Well, where are these Indians now? In their own country, they live on a reservation. Nuclear blackmail is a modern genocide. This is also a tool of influencing the minds of people. So, it is as though you do not need to think about anything. Live today. Do not think about tomorrow. Do not think about your children, your grandchildren, and so on. This is what is now unfolding in the vastness of our motherland.